everyone, if you can hear me. I'm going down the boat and go and do one of those jobs that you just don't get round to doing. Headlinings. There's only a couple of bits I've got to do. Well, hopefully I can show you what I'm doing and see if it's any help to you. We're here anyway, nearly at the boat. She's just over there. In the boat, most of the boat I'm quite lucky with. It's got plastic up the top, so I don't have to worry about that. A lot of people have got the same materials here though, and I don't really have to worry about that because the windows have it trapped there. It's trapped under the roof there and under the curtain rail over there, and also down the bottom there's a hard plate which has got it trapped, so that's all quite good. It's the forward bedroom that it's pretty bad. Him over there, you can see the way it sags, but I'm not overly bothered about the sag. This bit here, as you can see, the glue's gone in and it droops down a little bit along its way, but it's stitched down here. It's held fast by this roof lining here, which has got a little bit of air in it, but because it's only small, it's only a small amount of air, so I'm not going to be overly bothered about that. This one, however, there's a cupboard here, and this one's catching with the cupboard. Also, the fan which is here, this catches this as well when it runs round. So this big baggy spot here, which droops down a couple of inches, as you can see, it sticks up almost when it touches the bonding. That'll have to be done. And this one that runs right along the back here, all the way to the forepeak of the V. This is actually detached from the side. I don't know if you can see it, but it just wobbles away. But it's held in by this at the top here at the moment, and down at the bottom. But I'm going to take that off completely. I know it doesn't look too bad, but the other side's atrocious. The other side's dropped down, and this will probably drop down behind us. So I'm going to take it off anyway and replace that. It's sort of trimmed in with a bit of carpet down there. So first thing I'm going to do is rip that bit of carpet off there and then see what's left. This top liner, which is really droopy, is held with these. To get rid of them, all you normally have to do is get a pair of side cutters. Oh, I can't even get a grip on them. You don't have to squeeze them hard. You just slide them up to it till it stops in there and then flick it to the side. If you use your correct hand, you find it really easy and just pop them off. There they are, and you can collect them without losing them on the floor. Then just undo the self-tapper screws that are holding the actual headlining up. There's also a little plastic washer that's just below the screw, and that's actually quite important because the little hat that it wears, the white hat that we popped off, that's what holds it on. Once all the screws are out, you've got to ease the board down. Got to make sure it's not stuck with glue on its back to anything else and you're going to pull anything else apart. I'm quite lucky on this side because one end's going to rest on the fan and the other end's going to rest on the lamp. So it's more like I've got 4 arms than 2. These head linings as well, they're just big sheets of plywood or hardwood depending on who built your boat. But they are really awkward to manoeuvre inside the boat, so take your time with them and don't poke a window out or anything else. Okay, let's just move this aside and have a quick look at it. Well, as you can see, if I pull up the edge here, there's not much glue left doing anything left here. It's only the shape of it that's been holding it in place. Well, what we'll do is we'll take that by the workshop and we'll have a look at it later. The next thing I need to do before it gets any worse is this edge here that may droop down. I can actually tape it up and keep it up there, or I can use these holes that are already in it from the self-tapper screws to hold it in place. Well, I haven't got any tape at hand at the moment, so it looks like it's self-tapper screws. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to screw a couple of these back in and they'll stop this from coming away any further and making matters worse. Of course, I don't put every self-tapper screw back, just the ones that are holding a bit of loose material from drooping down. Okay, now the real fun begins. Bit of vandalism. I'm going to start pulling this away and seeing what's underneath it. There's a lot of shiny sticky tape down there, but as you can see, nothing's stuck to anything behind it. This has just been stuck on top to hold it all in place. There's a washer as well. Let's have a look at a couple of the bits we're going to need. We're going to need glue. That's spray glue. That's a wire brush, a screwdriver, some marker pens, some grips, scissors, a bradawl or a thin screwdriver and an ordinary screwdriver, some rubber gloves, There's nothing really technical in any of this, a tape measure. So it's quite an easy job and you don't have to load yourself up with special equipment to do it. So let's see what we're up against. Well, it's clearly not bonded down. I can wiggle it here and I could probably pull it off, but that'll make a hell of a mess. So I put a bit of bubble wrap down to catch the mess and then get myself a knife. A knife's an easy way of doing it. You can cut right through the centre with scissors if you want, but I just go near the edge with the knife just to start somewhere. I'll trim down this edge here and it'll allow me to peel back the vinyl without making too much of a mess while I'm doing it. Plus, if you wanted a template for new vinyl, that would produce one. That craft knife was no good whatsoever, so I've gone and got myself a kitchen knife. It's a bit sharper, but probably those modelling type knives that you snap the bits off on the end are probably a lot better for the job. You can just grab the whole vinyl instead of doing this and yank it out, and I'm sure it'll come. But it will make a hell of a mess because the old foam backing just flies everywhere. You can see as well, while I'm trimming this, just how loose this vinyl is. It's like a sheet in the wind. It's attached to nothing. It's just there, flapping round. Well, I think that'll do this end for now. I should do exactly what I've done here, cut down where the wood is with a knife around the forward end, so that then I'm left with the full template should I need it. Top tip here is I'm going to cut downwards, and the reason I'm going to cut downwards and not upwards is the grain runs down. The knife can't catch the grain this way. So think about that. If you've got an angle of wood, do it so that you can't catch the grain. So work out so that you're always where the grain's running off the wood and the knife won't dig into the wood. And hopefully it still gives you the correct pattern. Again, down there. Well, once all the cutting's done, that's all the clean work done. From here on in, it gets really sticky and messy, so get your gloves on. Now, I don't really care much for this vinyl because I'm not going to reuse it and I don't need it for a template. But if you do, take care of it. Before I can pull this off here, I might need to trim an odd other piece. So I've got the knife with me as well in case there's any bits still stuck, and I'll run the blade back down because there's always bits of it still catching. Now, they're not all fitted exactly the same. My vinyl tucks under the wood a little bit in all the places, so it gives it a neat look. But quite often, vinyl only butts up against the side of wood, and you probably don't even need a knife to do that kind of a job. So check which yours is before you start trying to trim something that doesn't require trimming. You'd probably know which type it is anyway, because that type normally falls apart a lot quicker. The only reason this old vinyl's still in place is because it's been tucked behind the wood. I've still got plenty to trim as I go, but it is coming bit by bit, and once I'm past this edge of wood, it'll start getting a lot easier all the way up to the aft edge. You see here, just as the vinyl drops out my hand, there's very little foam left on it. It's just a sheet of vinyl. Those little black bits you see are the actual bits of foam that are left on this piece of vinyl holding it to the boat. Well, I'll speed this little bit up here because it will be a bit tedious otherwise. There's a pipe running at the top of mine here. It's not for liquids, it's got wires that run through it. It's for the bow thruster and any power that's required at the front. Well, with the vinyl removed, you can see what's left. And what's left is a lot of the old rubber which is broken down. A lot of it is turned to dust and has just fallen down at the bottom. But these big chunky pieces that drop out, as soon as you touch them, they fall to pieces. There's nothing holding them together anymore. They're more like a lump of dust. Which probably means I should be wearing a mask at this point in time. But I've got two vents open and it's blowing its socks off out. The next stage is my wire brush stage. This is how I take any foam off that's left. I just scrub the actual sides of the boat or the tops of the boat if this is above you, and it actually breaks the foam off quite quickly off whatever glue is left behind. Now, it'll leave some glue behind, but that doesn't matter because if it's strong enough to stay, it's strong enough to hold your new lining. But a lot of glue will disappear as well. But give it a good scrub, like it was a scrubbing brush and you were washing something down. Most of the glue at this point is coming away, but there is a patch that seems to be wanting to stay, so it's quite strong. This bit here, that's a patch of glue. while all around it's come off. Well, I scrubbed a good section of the top there off and it come off quite well, but it's dark up there, like there's rubber all being left behind. But then I realised it wasn't. I actually twigged after a little bit why it's dark stripe across the top, and I'm just looking through the fiberglass to the colour on the outside. I've got a blue stripe there. Well, I'll just turn my arm on full power and get rid of the rest of it. The results I get are satisfactory to what I want. If you look at it, you can see just areas of glass and no glue, and the darker patches, they're areas of glue. I've got a little mountain of dust at the bottom, which I'll need to clean up before I can carry on and do the last couple of inches. Well, this is it. All cleaned up and satisfactory for the next stage, which is starting to put it back together to me. Now, if you were going to paint this, you'd have to make sure before you primed it that every bit of the glue was off, because I'm sure that would spoil your paintwork. But as carpentry is a lot quicker and easier, I'm going to take the easy route, and also has the added benefit of a bit of insulation. My bulkheads are only bonded on one side, which gives me a benefit. I've got a gap where I can shove a bit of material underneath the end. Next, stretch your material out in the area you want to be working. Any corners bigger than a right angle will require excess material because it will grow as you get higher. So don't stop the edge at the bottom, bunch a bit of extra up. And any areas that are less than a right angle, like this one, won't require as much. So you won't require any excess here. Next, I usually get the material where I'm going to lay it, and I fold over about 3 inches. And I do this all the way. And the reason I do it is because I'd rather have a little bit extra down there I can cut off and worry about afterwards than trying to put a straight edge along the bottom and work on an exact straight edge. I do this all the way along and try and pull it a little bit stretched out so it's nice and neat. That's it, finished and ready to go. Oh, and don't forget to check you've got it the right way round. One side's rough and the other side's fluffy. Can you hear that gale outside? This is the top of the can I use to spray the glue with. The top of it has a line which runs on the nozzle left to right, that one there. That means you have to move the can left to right while spraying. If you wanted to move the can up and down, you'd have to rotate this nozzle 90 degrees in order to do so. Then, holding the can about 6 to 8 inches away, a nice long even stroke, you'll see the glue go on. It'll fan an area of about 3 to 4 inches, and do the same on both the material and the fiberglass. I don't spray all the way up to the end either. I leave a gap here about 6 inches from the bulkhead to where I start spraying, and at the other end about the same, about 6 inches. There's no rush when working with contact adhesive. As long as you got glue on both sides, you've got plenty of time to put it on, so don't rush. You must start in the centre and just feel the first half inch up, and then run your fingers along. We've got about a 3-inch run of glue, so I want to go about halfway from that, from the first run, and then push it out to the sides, and then lift it up to the second bit and then push that out to the sides. And of course I'm only going to within the last 6 inches of the wood, so I'm not panicked to get the edges sorted. That's the first bit done, easy, 3 inches on. Then just flatten the material back down after you've actually gone across it, so it's ready for the next section of glue. You know the glue's gone all the way up to the top of that piece then, because you can actually tug on it a little bit downwards. We're ready to spray the next spray on top. Just before you spray a second time, make sure there's no glue on the end of the nozzle there. If there is, pull it off. Then exactly the same as we did the first time. A nice steady fan all the way across from left to right and back again on both the material and the glass fibre. Loads of time to go, so don't panic about sticking on. You've got 2 to 3 minutes to allow the glue to tack. Again, always working from the centre of your workpiece and work outwards. Ensuring there's no bumps under your fingers as you go, you're smoothing everything out. Keep this same pattern going now until you get up to an obstacle, something that stops you in your way. You'll actually be surprised just how much ground you cover and how quickly you cover it at 3 inches a go. Don't forget to always work from the inside to the outside. And keep an even line down this edge towards the woods, and a line not glued. Put it in your vision or draw it on, whichever you want to. You can always put a chalk line down there and the other edge there as well. Hey look, that's swallow on the outside there. Can you see the swallow through the glass? That's what you can see. Well, I work my way up to the first obstacle, which is this wooden shelf. And when I get there, I stop about 2 inches short. I'm going to push the material all the way up to the corner of the shelf, and I'm going to put a little dot with a felt tip when I've got it right on the corner, so I know where the corner is when I drop the material back down. There's my red dot that denotes the corner. I now cut away the waste material that I'm not going to need in that area. Obviously, I'm not going to go too close to that dot either. Then push the material into place against the wood at the top, and there'll be a little bit left over from, obviously you need to cut this straight, so I'll have to apologise about the low light levels. My camera's not all singing and all dancing, and its low light level performance, as you can see, is not very good. But as I said, just steadily mark this fabric on the back side where it meets the wood with your marker. Once you've marked the fabric, then you can peel it back again because we haven't glued it yet, and then we can cut that straight line. As I lift the carpet away from the wood, you can see the red line appearing. That's the line that should meet the end of the wood. When cutting along this line, don't forget that we've got to stay inside of that dot. If we go outside of it, we know that'll be past the wood, and then we just need to trim down the line. Once you've trimmed down the line and you've got the bottom pushed back into place, recheck the corner, mark the dot, and then you can trim up to where about the dot is so that you get it right. And it's ready to go. I'm going to spray the glue on it now, same way as I would have done before, but underneath this one I've got a bit of waste mat so that not to get on the good mat underneath. Don't forget we lift the carpet as one, so if we're going to go up 2 inches for the wood, we need to continue right the way along the carpet with the glue and the fiberglass, the 2 inches, to make it all lift even. And don't start from the wooded area because we've just trimmed to it. Still start from the centre and push out from there, and things will be uncreased when we've finished. Next, I'm going to trim off that end down there, so I'll just mark it up quickly with a felt tip and cut it off. You can mark it with chalk if you're not confident. I use any straight edge to shove it in along the side. I mean, a screwdriver or anything can do this. And then once I've shoved it in on the side, I get a felt tip, I take the top off, I put it sideways against the new carpet which is already fitted and run it down the edge, and it will mark the carpet at where I need to cut it without putting any marks on the already glued piece. Not forgetting when we started the job we were going to leave 6 inches unglued on the end of the carpet, so that now there's plenty here for me to play with. So when I pull that out, I've got a lot of area I can get the glue in, and I've also got a little bit of area I can make a mistake with. Again, trim down the line. Get yourself an old bit of carpet to stick behind a folded bit so as not to get any spray glue on the new carpet. Push it aside and we're ready to glue. Check the can nozzles clean before you start. If it's got a bogey of glue on it, pull it off. Plenty of sunlight coming through that fiberglass from out there, brightening things up. Right, I get an ordinary bit of cardboard to protect the wood. I just put it against the wood, and when I spray the glue obviously doesn't stick all over the wood. Now don't forget, I'm spraying downwards, so I need to turn the can sideways or the glue won't come out properly. It'll be in a straight line rather than a fan. Or my other option is to turn the end of the nozzle vertical. Finish the gluing up, and after you've put your glue on, you're ready to push it in place. And do that from the area that you're starting, so run it all the way up with your fingers, making sure there's no lumps or bubbles along the way. I then finish off by shoving mine into the gap with a pair of scissors or a screwdriver. Well, it's starting to look a little bit neater, so it gives you some idea of what the rest of this is hopefully going to look like when it's finished. Now this edge here now is going to have to be dealt with as we go now. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is shove the carpet up into place and then mark that up, and we're going to use exactly the same method as marking as we have done so far. We're going to run a straight edge along where we need it to be. I've used the back of my scissors this time. That's not as a cutting edge, that's the rounded part. And then it's the felt tip again against the flat of the carpet where the good carpet is, and just scribe it down, and it gives you a line approximately 1/4 of an inch out on a 1/2 inch thick felt tip. Then just get your scissors and trim it off as usual. I trim on the line, but if you weren't to tuck any away, in other words you're going to butt it up against the surface, then you would cut 1/4 of an inch to the inside of the line. Now that the sun's coming out, I can see that sunlight there through the fiberglass, but I can also see it there through the carpet. I think I've bought really poor quality carpet, and when I hold it up to the sunlight you can just see straight through it. It's about 3 to 4 millimeters thick, and it's not a very good quality. I got it off eBay, and when I look at the old stuff that I took up, I put that up against the sunlight and you can't see nothing through it. So there's massive differences in the quality. So if I can give you any advice, it would be ask for some samples before you settle for what you're getting. If I'm not happy with it at the end of the day, I'll just redo it with some better quality material. I have about 8 inches to go, and I've got loads of material hanging round. So I think I'll cut it somewhere closer to where I need it. So carry on gluing and still working from the centre and working outwards until you get to your last little bit where you've got about 2 inches to go. And then just push the carpet up to the top with one hand, and with the felt tip flat against the good carpet, just scribe yourself a line along. And then obviously trim off. Then you can add the glue to where you need it to be, not forgetting to use a bit of sacrificial carpet in order to protect the good stuff. And then when you've got all the glue on, from the centre outwards, the last little bit can be pushed into place. And the last bulkhead we've got to do is probably the best one for you to see. There'll be a bit more light on it. Right, this piece here that I'm going to show you now, I've folded it backwards on itself, and about 1 inch out I'm going to mark a line. A flexible ruler like kids use for school's perfect for this. You just put it up against the bulkhead and draw a nice neat straight line down it. This is the method for fitting it to a bulkhead which has got glass fibre all the way up to it and doesn't have an area to tuck in. I'm only doing this to show you how to do it if yours is a bulkhead with glass fibre against it and there's nowhere for you to tuck. You need to then trim along the line and cut off any excess material. You want this line to be a good clean straight cut as well. This is now 1 inch too big. So what you'd want to do is we want to put a bit of material underneath, and we want to spray along this surface here, and then we want to fold the distance over to the other side like that. That we want glued down. Once that's all glued down in a stripe all the way down, nice and neat, then you're ready to fit it against the butt-up bulkhead. You'd now just spray the gap in between and turn it over like that, and that's how you get your finish, and there'd be a neat line running up the side. But I don't do it that way because mine tucks in behind. I just wanted to show you the correct way of doing it to get a nice finish against the bulkhead that butts up. As you know, mine's a marker down the side, dead easy. You should know this procedure off by heart now. After you've marked it, trim it. After you've trimmed it, fold it. A bit of card to stop the glue going on the wood. A bit of sacrificial carpet underneath the piece you've folded so as not to get the glue on the good stuff. Work from the centre bit by bit, shove it along. Use something to shove it into the groove, screwdriver or the likes, and hey presto. The bottom edge needs gluing all the way up to where it starts, and from the corner I normally trim it back about 1 inch. So easy, obviously, grab a felt tip and scribe along the line. Chop off the excess and then glue it all in place using the methods we've used up to now. Sacrificial bits of card and what have you. This bit's not on show, so you just start wherever's convenient and get on with it. Well, there's a few funny shapes along that bluey grey carpet, but I never cut this. These were already down. I've just stuck them back to where they were. But you don't see any of this once it's all in anyway, so not too bothered. The actual carpet we've put up, despite its thinness, still looks quite good. Right, we need to direct our attention to something else now. This bit, the headlining. Well, this is just one piece of headlining, and as you can see, it's got no body to it whatsoever. The adhesive's completely gone. It were literally hanging by the screws. Well, once these have been removed from the boat, if you get them to a flat area, they're nice and easy to work on. Now, the material to me is still good, so we're going to actually replace this material with this material, so we're just rebonding it. Repairing headlinings is dead easy. You only need glue and a piece of wire. The bit of wire I use is out of a wiper blade on a car, an old wiper blade. Brilliant bit of wire, does all kinds of jobs. So next time you're throwing a wiper blade away, pull this little bit of stainless steel out. It comes in handy for all kinds. Right, I'm going to do this first bit in real time, just show you how fast and how easy it is to do. So what I want to do is I've folded my material. I want to spray into the fold, and I'm going to work in a big area this time, but you can actually see quite happily the glue going on. So you can see where you've been and what you've glued. Now, you've got to go half the section there because I've folded it over, so I've got no choice but to go for half a section. I've got my areas of overspray covered so that any overspray doesn't get back on the material or anywhere else, or hopefully that's the plan anyway. I just have to move that little bit of old stuff there out the way so that it lands on that and not me shiny part of my material. Well, that's the glue on. So what comes after the glue? Well, it's the fold and the wiper blade. Let's see what that wiper blade does. I get this little piece of wire and it does a magical trick, and without it I wouldn't know how to do this. So I'll explain what I'm doing as I'm doing it and why I'm doing it. I'm going to feed from the centre as we go there, with the actual material falling into its correct place. Well, that's because I've left the first bit sort of held into where it was placed by the hooked over edges. Then I go and get my bit of wire and I shove it through the hole where the screws go, and I put it through the hole in the wood, the other end. And when I pull that down into place, that is actually producing the same two holes in the same two places as they were in the first place. And then I'll flatten the glue and the material out towards it. But what this will do is it'll ensure that it's gone back to the exact same spot that it was. So again, the next hole, go through the hole, find the hole in the wood, and then drop your material down and then flatten it all around it. And what's happening is we're using the exact same piece of material, and we're not going to need new screw holes putting in it. We're going to use the same screw holes on the boat, the same screw holes in the wood, and the same screw holes in the vinyl. And it'll also mean that you won't go off cock putting a bit of vinyl on that's already trimmed and cut, so it will still fit. So just use the screw holes, make sure everything goes through. And if this one I'm finding it a little bit difficult to go through because I never got round to that one, I'm going to go back to the other side, and because the glue's contact glue, you can pull it back off for now and you can have a look at where the hole's meant to be, line them up, push them into place. Therefore, all these holes are going to be in the exact same spot they need to be. Well, you mightn't thank me for it now, but when you go to fit this back on the boat, you definitely will. Okay, now I'm going to speed it up a bit. So, same methods are going to apply. I'm not doing anything different, but you can see the difference in what was the material down and what it will look like afterwards. A few finishing touches, and let's get this back to the boat and get it fitted so we can call this job complete. Back in the gangway, it still seems to be blowing its socks off out here. But it's a nice sunny day, and it's a nice way to start the new year. It could almost pass for summer with them blue skies, or bits of blue skies. Except for the temperature, it'd be well nice for a sail. Now, a brad awl or a long thin screwdriver comes in dead handy. When you get the headlining in place, you just poke the screwdriver through the hole that we already know goes through the wood, and you locate the old hole in the woods underneath. You hold that firmly in place with your fingers, pull the screwdriver out and stick the screw in. And you're not making a fresh hole on the other side, and everything should go back just the way it came apart. It's at this point you'll be very pleased with yourself that you used a little bit of wiper blade to let the material fall down in the correct place on the wood while bonding it. After you've got all the screws in the same fashion, just go round and pop all the little hats on them, and that's just about it. Job's about done. A quick clean up, all as we need to do next. Vacuum clean it out, all the odd bits and pieces that we've left anywhere. Get rid of them. And then we can check out our work and see if we like it and see if it's any good.